Hello and welcome to the James Cook Podcast. I'm your host, James Cook, and today we got a great one for you, Dave Perez. Now, it has been a while since I've done these, and that's on me, but I've got some great one on ones lined up with some of my favorite Texas Red Dirt artists. So please subscribe and like this video today so that way we can get more of this stuff out to you. All right. First off, I want to talk a little bit about the band. We had some fun shows in October, including one at the Rhinestone Saloon in the Stockyards. Man, that show got wild. Got to play with some of our good friends, Lauren Lee on fiddle and Ross Backus from the John Young Band, tickling those keys all night long. It was a fun night. Tim, Jason, Ricky really had a great time out there. We're looking forward to coming back sometime soon. I will be going back to the Stockyards next month a few times. I'm going to be at the Basement Bar on November 29th. That's Black Friday. I'll have the trio out there. I'll be playing in Wichita Falls at Legends Roadhouse on November 14th. Blue Bayou on November 8th with my good friend Skylar Payne. On November 7th, I'll be back at the Stockyards with Mr. Ben Hatton for a song swap out there. Now, that's my birthday week, so lots going on that week, including the 7th at, again, Filthy McNasty's, Blue Bayou, and the 8th. On the 9th, that's my birthday. I'll take a break. I'm going to go watch one of my favorites, Kin Fo live in Midlothian. And then the following night is the Texas Country Music Awards, where I'm up for On-Air Personality of the Year. It's a fun week. I'm looking forward to that. I'm already tired just talking about it. Today's show, it's a great one. My friend Dave Perez from the Tejas Brothers. Not only does he bring just a magnificent sound to the potpourri that is Texas music, because he brings something I grew up on, Tejano music, and he really does a great job with it. And he brings that honky tonk sound. So you mix that in together, you've got the Tejas Brothers. He's got a new single out, Another Silent Night. This is for all you Merle Haggard fans out there. You're going to love this, love his vocals on it, recorded at Fort Worth Sound. We're going to find out more about that right now with my interview with Dave Perez from the Tejas Brothers. Hello, and thank you for joining the James Cook Podcast today. I have with me one of my favorites in the Texas music scene, Dave Perez from the Tejas Brothers. How you doing this afternoon, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I think this mic is working way too well. It's catching the birds outside, the
Oh, I love
acorns falling from the tree. I can hear it all.
it. We got morning doves at our house,
Oh, nice,
which,
nice.
yeah, I heard that was like a blessing or good luck. So we keep them going, keep them around.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
Great way to start your day with some gratitude hearing those birds. But
yeah.
man, I'm so excited about talking to you. Thank you for joining us today. I found out that you had a new single, and I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of catch back up. So we're going to talk about your single. It's a Christmas one. I'm so excited about it and finding out about how the origins of it. But I did want to go back a little bit to talk to you because I got some of this great information here that I didn't even know about that your team sent me. First off, you're from Texas, Prairie, and the way you kind of got introduced to music was you wanted an easy A in high school, so you took up mariachi band.
Yeah, that's right.
Did they have that?
I had a buddy of mine named Daniel Chavez, and he was he was one of the first guys in the band, and I remember he told me because I was telling him one day at lunch, I said, "Man, I've got to pick a fine arts credit, and I'm already in drama, and I've done that for so long, and I can't do a second drama class, and I don't like to draw. I'm not good at that." He said, "Man, well, they got a new mariachi band here at the high school." I said, "Mariachi band?" I said, "I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to play nothing." He goes, "Well, neither does anybody else in the band." So,
Oh, it's hilarious.
yeah, he's like, "Dude, it's an easy A." And this guy, he had been playing guitar for years, and just he's he said, "Dude, it's going to be fun." So I had one friend in there, and I made a lot of other friends, and it was a cool experience, man.
So, what were some of the things that you learned just in that class? Is there anything that kind of sticks out that
Yeah,
kind of helps
yeah.
you later on, or?
Well, for sure. So they said, well, you can't just stand up there and sing. But I quickly found out I had a real natural ear for harmony, singing harmony. And
Nice.
because my dad, he was never a professional singer, but he was a great vocalist. And I remember even as a kid, just driving and riding in the car with him, and he would listen to old 8 tracks of everything, man, from mariachi music to Tejano music to conjunto to country. And he would always sing along with the songs, but I noticed that he never sang. Like even at 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I would notice he was not singing what the lead singer was singing, but when it came together, it sounded beautiful, which I found out later on was harmony. So just years of hearing that, I started singing along to the songs, and I just naturally jumped up to the harmonies. spot in the songs, the mariachi. So they were like, well, look, you've got a great voice for harmony and you got a good ear for it, but you can't just stand there and sing harmony. You're mariachis, you got to play something. So they handed me a guitar, and I learned 2 chords, 3 chords, and just they put a capo on for me if I was going to a different key, and so I learned how to play a little bit of guitar, rhythm guitar.
When did you pick up the accordion? When did that start coming for you?
I was 22 years old when I picked up the accordion. That is a crazy story, but it's true. It's unbelievable, really. Even when I look back at how things happen. So at the time, my wife, she's my wife now, but at the time we were dating, and she needed me to pick her up in Dallas. We both lived in Grand Prairie, and I was working at the sheriff's department at the time. And so I thought it'd be a good idea for me to she was running late, and instead of going back to Grand Prairie, I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to hang out in Dallas and see if I can get lost. Drive around Dallas. So I started taking a right turn, left turn, right turn, left turn, just randomly. And then I actually succeeded, and I got lost. And so I go into this, there's this little strip mall or whatever. It was, I walked into a store, didn't even realize what kind of store it was, and it was a music store. I walked in there to get directions, and the salesman, the owner of the place, was showing somebody an accordion, and man, I just completely was in like just focused on that. It was so interesting. I said, "Man, what is that? Is that an accordion? My uncle used to play an accordion." And he's like, "Yeah." He says, "I said, wow, that's beautiful. How much are they?" And $2,800 later, man, I was an owner of my first accordion. Did not know how to play it, dude. I had no idea. The guy was a hell of a salesman. So I go in and take it, load it to my car, get behind the wheel. I'm so happy. And then I'm like, shoot, I still don't know where I'm going. So I had to go back inside direction.
That's great. Serendipity. That's awesome. To be able to see an instrument like that. When it comes to like accordion players and drummers, I'm always like, man, you must be really devoted to that instrument, because that is not the cheapest instrument you can get involved in.
Right.
Guitar, you grab $100 guitar, be on
Yeah.
your way.
Yeah.
And learn how to play that. But accordion and drums, that's an investment. You
Well,
really wanted to do
and
it.
with the accordion, because it was so expensive, and the guy was such a good salesman, and he says, you can buy one for $600-700. He says, but you're never going to want to play it. It's not going to sound good. You're going to get frustrated. He says, this is the Cadillac of accordions. And it's a $2,800 accordion. I was thinking, man, that's a lot of money. He says, well, and I was still in my uniform. I was still at the Dallas County Sheriff's Department at the time. So I was still in uniform. And he says, well, I can trust you because I can tell by the way you're dressed that you're probably a good dude and honest. And he says, I tell you what, why don't you take it home? I'll let you take it home for $100. Just pay me $100 a month, no interest, and it'll be 28 payments later. It'll be yours. I was like, wow, that's a great deal. So yeah, I took it home, and in 6 weeks, I taught myself how to play in 6 weeks.
What were you listening to teach yourself how to play around that time?
Man, so mostly like Tejano stuff. I loved Jaime Los Chamacos. There was a band out of Lubbock called the Hometown Boys.
Cool.
And then a lot of stuff that my dad, I grew up listening to. At that time, we're talking about, this was 1998, 90, yeah, something like that, 96, 98. Anyhow, I was listening to, there was a radio station in Dallas called Kick FM. It was 99.1 Kick FM. And man, they played, you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So I would just listen to that, to the station, and then they'd go and buy a CD. Emilio was real hot back then. Emilio Navaida.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I was listening to Kick. I mean, you got to remember, Selena would be on the station sometimes. A young up and coming comedian, George Lopez, would sometimes be on. I'd listen to it. We'd pick it up in Wichita Falls, and in my house we listened to Kick FM. That was what we listened to. So.
Pancho Pistolas, he's a good buddy of mine now, but back in the day, I remember listening to Pancho Pistolas, and just it's cool how everything comes full circle. So yeah, I would go, if I heard a song, even if it was just one song, that I'd go and find out what CD it was on and go to the music store and buy it. And I had a big collection of records and CDs, and I would just listen to that and taught myself. And the accordion is just I tell people, when you're learning the accordion, it's kind of like being married. It's about learning which buttons not to push.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you said you were in law enforcement.
Yeah.
How long were you in law enforcement before you started? Or actually, how long were you in law enforcement
So
altogether?
4 years. I worked for the Dallas County Sheriff's Department for 4 years, and the reason, and it was great because everybody was very supportive of when I started playing music. You know, I got my first gig after I was teaching myself for 6 weeks, and my dad, he was reading the newspaper one day, and me and my buddy Daniel Chavez were practicing in the living room, and he said, "Well, boys, I think you guys are ready to go make some money." We're like, "What? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" He says, "Y'all need to get the heck out of here. Tired of hearing y'all practice. Y'all need to go make some money at it." So I started playing, and then sheriff's department buddies would come and see me and play, and see me play, and they were very supportive. And then news got back to like the captains and the lieutenants of my shift, and they called me in one day. They said, "You know, Perez, found out you've been playing music in little bars and stuff." I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, you know, that's a problem. If you're going to be deputy for this department, you can't be a sworn officer and be working like part-time at a place that sells 51% or more of their sales comes from alcohol." I said, "Oh, God." And I didn't know that. He said, "Yeah, that's a problem." He says, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I guess I'll quit." He says, "You're going to quit what?" I said, I'll quit music. I'm just, that's just something I do." He says, "Wrong, wrong answer." He's like,
Oh,
"Man," he says, "everybody around here has been telling me that you're fantastic and he says, "You're going to have to pursue that." He says, "I'll make it easy for you." And he says, "I'm telling you, you need to put in your resignation here and pursue music." So I did, man.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was in 99.
Man.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I'm so sorry.
My last day of work was New Year's. It was the day before New Year's Eve. So I got to go and play a gig on New Year's Eve.
What a celebration, right?
Yeah,
That's
it was great,
crazy.
man.
Well, I know that you went to law enforcement after your service in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I was in the Marines right out of high school. I graduated on a Friday night. I was 17, so I had to get a waiver. My parents had to, give permission, which they were so happy to do. But I went to the Marine Corps on a Sunday morning. I graduated high school on Friday night, and then Sunday morning, man, talk about culture shock. What?
Wow. And you
Yeah,
were just changed and then came back, joined law enforcement,
yeah,
got told, hey, man,
yeah,
maybe music.
yeah.
That's great because I've seen your talent, and of course, they must have seen something, and you're like, "Hey, come on, you got to pursue that
And
dream."
and I love it. I love it, and I still have such great friends from both the Marine Corps and the Sheriff's Department, because when you're in the Marines, it's a brotherhood. You know, definitely every branch of service I've heard that it's a brotherhood, or men and women that are there. It's a family. And then when I went to work for the Sheriff's Department, same kind of thing. You got to have your brother's back, and they've got to have your back, and you trust the men and women that you're working with. And so it's become a family. And over the years, all those people are still supporting me. I still, almost every show when we're in the DFW area, inevitably somebody from the Sheriff's Department or the Marines will be at the show. And it's really, that support is great. I had a buddy of mine, his name is Aaron White, and he called me about 2 years ago. And we were in Wichita Falls. And I got a call. It
Oh,
was right after sound check. And I got a call. It's like, "Aaron White, man, I hadn't seen him or heard from him in a long time." And he says, "Hey, Perez, how you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm up here in Wichita Falls fixing to do a show." He says, "Yeah, well, I was just calling to let you know, man. This was back in probably 2020, maybe 2019." He says, "I'm just calling to let you know that I think you messed up, man. You should have stayed at the Sheriff's Department." I was like, "Oh, wow." He says, "Yeah, man, think about it. If you'd have stayed at the Sheriff's Department, you'd have had weekends off by now."
that's the one thing we musicians don't get off.
We don't get
We got to work
weekends
those
off.
weekends, man. So, how long after you started, you left the police department? Whenever you did leave law enforcement, were you already hooked up with the Tejas brothers, or was that something that
No,
happened later on down the line?
that happened later on. So when I started playing music, and I started playing music in '98. Worked for a couple more years, a year and a half or so. Left the Sheriff's Department, and at that time, I had a really cool gig, such a sweet gig. There's a restaurant chain that called Los Lupes in the Dallas Fort Worth area, And Los Lupe's, the owners, there's two brothers and then their dad, and they had 7 different restaurants, and we would play at almost all of them. So we would be like in Carrollton on Mondays and Tuesdays. We'd be in Duncanville on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We'd go to Grand Prairie Saturdays and Sundays, and it was like, and then on Sundays we had 2 gigs, one in Grand Prairie, one in Dallas. So I was playing 8 gigs a week, and I don't know what the pay was, maybe 150 a person. And it was just 2 of us, but we would make so much money in tips. And I was like, man, we were making really good money at that time for us to be local musicians. We didn't have any recordings. We were just playing, but we would always draw in a crowd. And the reason was because I looked at it as a service. Like, and I still look at being in the music industry as public service. To me, that's the way I look at it, because, you're dealing with audiences that work all week. They have all these stresses and they want to come and relax. They want to have a good time. They want to be entertained. So it's a service. So part of that was like, it was all about them. So when they would come into the restaurant, they'd say, hey, they'd ask for all kinds of crazy requests. Sometimes they thought they were being funny, and they would ask for, like, do you guys know any Pantera? Like, actually, yeah, we do, because the guy last week asked for that and we learned it. So yeah, so it
Here's
was
Cemetery Gates. Let's rock and roll.
yeah, man. And then like when people, even to this day in the audience, if somebody asks for Freebird, and they're just being for Freebird, yeah, I'm like, well, we can do it. We'll do it. So
You messed up.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was the whole thing. It's like, man, that was kind of our shtick, our gimmick was that people would come into the restaurant and say, hey, do you guys know any Willie Nelson? We're like, no, but what song do you want? Oh, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. I said, you know what? Come back next week and we'll have it for you. So we built over the years about a 1,700 song repertoire. 1,700 songs, man. We could just play all kinds of music.
That's nuts. And y'all been together. How long have you been together now?
Okay, so the Tejas brothers, we've been together. We formed. So yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of didn't answer the question, right? So
It's okay.
that was from '98. Played at the restaurant, and then one day, this guitar player comes in. He's a blues guy. This is in 2006, and he had been wanting to put together a project where it was like, after the Texas tornadoes stopped playing, after Doug Sahm passed and Freddie Fender passed and all that, there was kind of a void. There was a hole that needed to be filled, because Texas tornadoes were bringing that country music and rock and roll and Tex-Mex music together. So this guy comes in, he's a blues player. He says, man, I want to kind of do something like the Texas Tornadoes. He says, and I heard about this accordion player at Los Lupe's that can play everything, country music, rock and roll, blues on the accordion. So he says, do you mind if I sit in with you? I said, he came up, played a couple songs, and he's like, he invited me out to the stockyards. And this, like I said, 2006, I go to the stockyards, and it was like an open mic night, and it was a full band open mic. So if you were a drummer, or if you were a guitar player or a bass player, and you wanted a place to play on Thursday nights in the stockyards at the Stockyard Saloon in Fort Worth, they would have open mic, full band open mic night. So you jump up with all different players. And well, we got up there and played. The next week we went up there and played. By about the 3rd or 4th week, everybody started leaving their axes at home. The guitar players, they wouldn't even bring it. They would come in and just want to watch us. They're like, oh, you guys play. So we're like, man, you got musicians wanted to just chill out and not play and just watch us. I said, we should probably form a band. And so we did. That's how the Tejas brothers were formed.
Nice. I love that. It's such a great group. I love the combo of music styles that you put into this. Every night, what I love about it is that whenever I go to a show, I always love hearing the song and going like, man, this sounds a little bit like this, or this sounds a little bit like that. But in the end, it all has this Tejas Brothers sound. So you can hear influences coming left and right, but at the same time, it's all the same thing. That's what
Well,
I've always dug about your band.
appreciate that. And that came out so organically. If you're from Texas, it's so awesome to be from Texas, to be playing music in Texas, because there's so many different influences. If we go up to, I don't want to bash any other states, but let's say we go out to Wyoming or Montana. I don't think that they have those same influences up there that we do here in Texas.
Yeah, the infrastructure in Texas is amazing, and
Yeah.
I think the best thing about Texas also, because having traveled, I notice it. You go to San Antonio, you hear style. You go to Houston, you hear style. You go to West Texas, it really does have its own kind of rhythm and beat to it. So whenever you're able to travel it and hear other musicians, to gather that sometimes is pretty fun. I mean, that's the coolest part about playing Texas. It's
Man,
everywhere.
that's a great observation, man. I've never had anybody put it to me that way. It's like, yeah, I've never even realized you're right. You go to different areas in Texas and it's like they have their own style, but they all can work together. You can
Yeah.
have a band from West Texas, a band from South Texas, and a band from, North Texas, whatever, and Houston. You can have them on the same festival and everybody's going to be thoroughly entertained. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to love it. Yeah, I love that.
Somehow it has a Texas sound. I don't know, and you're right. I don't know how you get that in other states. For one thing, no other state is as big. So if you go
Right.
to
Yeah.
go to the complete opposite of the state, it's like, hi, I still
Right.
see you. You go
Yeah.
to the other side of Texas, you might as well have gone to Canada.
Yeah.
It's just so many miles between us. But in the same, it's I think that's the amazing part about the music scene in Texas is the distance between each and every city, but somehow it gels together in a great blend. And your band has always been a band that I the first time I heard you, it just reminded me so much of my youth. We talked about Kick FM. I used to listen to that with my family. La Febre,
Oh, yeah.
Sombra. These are the Texas Tejano bands, and they have a similar type of route that they do throughout Texas. So
Right.
my aunts and uncles were always getting me to go to those. So it was easy for me to get in the Texas country scene because it reminded me so much of the Tejano scene, very regional, very personal.
Oh, yeah.
You get to know the people of Sweetwater. You get to know the people of Abilene. These are two smaller cities, but you get to
Right.
know the people that come to those shows, and that's a great thing. Plus, I just love looking at your fans. Something I notice when I go to your site or your Facebook page is and shows because I've had the opportunity to open for you guys a few times, and every single time. The number one thing that I love about your shows are your fans. Your fans just love the energy, love the show, and I think I enjoy that a lot about your shows as well.
Well, and it's, I think part of that might be because, and I got this advice from Gary P. Nunn told me a long time ago. He says, Dave, you got to make it about the fans. You got to make it about the audience. You have to, and it was right in line with the whole service idea, right? Like you're serving them, you're putting it all out, put everything you can for them, and they'll appreciate it and they'll support you. And so we kind of have a saying in the band, and for lack of better words, fans, they're fans, right? But we kind of say, well, we don't have fans, we have friends and family and supporters. If I tell people all the time, I said it this past Saturday, there's only 52 Saturdays in a year. So the fact when I look at the audience, I'm like, it's Saturday night in Texas. Y'all could be doing anything y'all want.
Mm,
There's only 52 Saturdays in a year. The fact that you're here on one of those precious Saturdays to support us, that we're going to put it all out in line for y'all. Thank you.
yeah,
And if I, as long as I keep that mentality, which is very easy to do because the friends and supporters and family of we're one big family, the Tejas Brothers Nation. It's
that's
just,
great.
I just look at it like that. Like everybody is my brother or my sister.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Whenever I look at, I think the same thing every time I've ever looked into an audience is you literally could be doing anything, especially now. Like I started music years ago, but the more we get into music, the more distractions there are on the weekends
Oh
and
yeah,
other things they could be doing. And I always have a personal belief that a lot of people that show up to your shows and to shows like mine are people that recognize what music does for them.
right.
I think they recognize I need this in my week.
Yeah.
I've done a lot this week. Please be the thing that keeps me sane and balanced. And
You know what? And I was going to say
responsibility.
two things. When I see you play, when I see your show, I can tell you're in the same spirit. You're in the same vein. You get it. It shows on your face. You're smiling the whole time. People tell me all the time, say, Dave, you never stop smiling. You're the same way, James. 100%.
Yeah.
And I know that
Great
you get it.
job, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Great
But then,
job.
yeah, and just I think that's a very cool thing. And you know what? Like you were saying, the other point I wanted to make was you said something really cool that the audience they're working all week and they need it. It's part of what they need, right? That's not the same way in every state. And I feel like it's kind of I feel not sorry, but I kind of feel like some of the people in these other states that don't have that same frame of mind, and they're missing out. Like poor people. I feel bad for them because that's music is such a big part of the Texas culture. Um, I think of a lot of, and I think maybe that's why a lot of people move from other states to Texas too. That's part of the reason why that they move here is because of the culture, just the music and the food and everything is, they don't have that everywhere else.
Don't get me started on the food. We can talk all day about that. That's a whole other podcast.
Right.
So let's do it. Let's talk about your latest single. I've been wanting to talk to you about this. I read all about it a few weeks ago. I was so shocked to find out how you wrote it, how you released it a little earlier than most Christmas songs.
Right.
I want you to be able to tell the story about this, the inspiration, the backstory on it.
It was around Christmas time about last year, and my wife had just served me a cup of hot chocolate. We love hot chocolate, and we only drink it in the wintertime. It's crazy. But she had given me a cup of hot chocolate, and we had just finished decorating the tree. And my sister, Norma, was coming over with my mom. And my sister she's a slow learner. So she, all my life, she's older than me, but all my life, we knew that she was a slow learner, special ed. But her birthday is on Christmas, and that's her big day, and that's everybody in the family knows it's Christmas, but it's also Norma's birthday, and it's a big deal. So we decorated the whole house, just totally floor to ceiling decorations. And so we just got done, and she says, "Relax, honey." My wife gives me a cup of hot chocolate. I sit down. She said, "I'm just going to put a couple final touches on the tree before Norma and your mom get here." And I just remember leaning back and drinking my hot chocolate, and I'm looking at her decorate the tree, and I'm just like, oh, wow, I am so blessed. Just looking around the house, I'm so lucky. And then just out of nowhere, I was just like a bolt of lightning, and this thought came into my head: like, what if you didn't have her? Like, what would that feel like? And dude, I never get sad. I'm the happiest. I wake up giddy every morning, but I got super sad, and I don't write a whole lot of sad songs. I don't feel sad, so I said, "Oh, I better take advantage." I put my hot chocolate down. I went upstairs, grabbed my guitar, and I started putting that feeling into this song called "Another Silent Night." And it's basically about a guy that doesn't have the love of his life, and he's just yearning for her to come back before Christmas. He doesn't want to be alone on Christmas, and so anyways, I wrote that and then worked on it, started writing that. And then, you go back and, you write songs, and so exactly what I'm talking about. You kind of, you don't want to get blinders on. You don't want to get tunnel vision. So you step away from it for a little bit, and then you come back and you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to tweak it here. So I worked on it for about a year. When I thought it was done, I was like, this is pretty close to done. Daryl Dodd is a good friend of mine, and Daryl and I, we talk quite often on the phone. This one particular day, a few months back, he says, "Hey, what are you up to, man? What you been doing? You writing any songs lately?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've been working on the song. I want to play it for you." I played it for him over the phone, and first thing he asked me was like, "Are you and Mara okay?"
It sounded a little too real, man.
Right,
What happened,
right.
bro?
And I was like, "Dude, yeah, we're cool." He's like, "Oh God, thanks," because we spent so much time with him, and he loves us, and we love him back. And I said, "No," I said, "Man," explained to him what happened. He said, "Man," I said, "Listen, Daryl," I said, "I love you, and I want you to be honest with me. I feel like it's pretty close to done, but I feel like there's some words or stuff that I'm not 100% married to yet." Well, he dove right in, man. I mean, he didn't hold anything back. He was like, "Man, let's fight for the lines." I said, "What do you mean fight for the lines?" He said, let's not settle. A lot of songwriters will settle because it rhymes, and let's fight for every line." So we went by line, word by word. We spent about 3 or 4 days calling, texting, hours and hours. And when I look back at the original version and the version that we came up with at the end after those 3 or 4 days, there's only very, very minute tweaks, but we fought for those. And that was really important for me I could sleep at night saying, "Man, it's done. There's nothing else I need to do to it."
You gave it your all, and you did everything you possibly
Yeah,
could.
and I had a great. Daryl Dodd's an incredible songwriter.
Yeah.
And when he got involved, so I told him, I said, "Man, you're a co-write on this." No, Dave. He's like, "No, man, that's not what I was. That's your song. You wrote." I said, "No, man, you fought for every line with me. You're right there with me for every line." I said, "You're a co-write." He said, "Well, man, thanks." And so he's so humble. He's so sweet. So yeah, this is the first time. I said, "This is our first co-write." He's like, "Yeah, it's our first co-write," because we've done stuff together, but never co-write. Yeah.
So
So
no, y'all did stuff with Coalition together.
yeah, with me and him and Larry Joe Taylor.
Yeah.
Those are fun. Those are fun shows. Well, now what? He says, well, now we record it. I said, well, it's been a long time since we've been at the studio. I said, I don't know if I want to. I said, I'm not sure if this is a Tejas Brothers song. He says, oh, it's not. It's definitely not a Tejas Brothers song. He says, no, man, I got some guys that I've been working with. I call them my cutting crew. He says, and let's go up to Fort Worth. Bart Rose, and I love Bart. I've just never worked on a project for myself or for the band with him. But he says, let's call up Bart. Let's get it lined up. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. And I kind of just unintentionally filed it away in my head. Like, one of these days, dude, he calls me the next day. All right, we got the band lined up. Here's the dates. And it was like the next week. And I'm like, it was like panic mode. Like, whoa, this is really happening. Wow.
Yeah.
So, but we went into the studio, and I remember John Garza from the band, from the Tejas Brothers, the bass player. Um, you know, even though this wasn't going to be a Tejas Brothers single, he loved the song, and he says, very supportive, and he says, man, how are you going to produce it? What are you looking for? How do you want it to sound? And I told him, I said, man, I'm kind of thinking like a Merle Haggard, like a throwback, almost old school, like 70s, 80s country, classic country sound. He says, what does Daryl think? I said, you know what? I haven't asked him. We just talked about going to the studio. He says, you know what? Don't tell him what we're thinking. Just ask him how he hears it, production wise. How does he hear it? First, Daryl was like, man, I'm kind of hearing like a Ray Charles big orchestra, real nice strings, no percussion, no drums, and just like the old records that he did when the Country Genius album, right? Mm-hmm. So a day and a half or 2 days later, he called me back and he says, you know what, Dave, I've been thinking about it. And more I think about it, man, I'm hearing Merle Haggard throwback. I was like, dude, that's exactly what we were thinking. So we went into the studio, and it was, to me, it was like mission accomplished. It sounds like exactly what we were shooting for.
Bart Rose is a great producer out there in Fort Worth. The Fort Worth sound altogether is, I don't know, did you work with Daryl's team or did you work with Bart's team for that?
No, well, I think some of those guys, I think that cutting crew, there was like 6 or 7 musicians. I can't remember exactly, but I know that they've all worked with Daryl, and they've all worked with Bart. They've all worked with Daryl and Bart together. Oh, okay. And then they've all worked with them separately as well on projects. So
I love how he calls them the cutting crew, like the wrecking crew. That's really hip.
Yeah.
Daryl's one of the hippest dudes I know, man. He just reminds me of a McConaughey attitude when I'm hanging with him. He's so relaxed. He's always so chill, but he's very loving.
And that makes for a great producer, man. If you ever get a chance to work with him, for him to produce any of your music, man, do it. If you get an opportunity, do it. I tell him he cracks the gentle whip. He's got a gentle whip he cracks. He can tell you to do something, and you don't even feel like you're being told what to do. He just gets you. Brings the best out of you.
Guides you to the greatness. That's good, man.
Yeah, it was great. And I didn't bring the accordion into the studio. There is no accordion on the song. I didn't even play any instrument. Well, I did play one instrument. I played the triangle, and I was really good at it.
Back it up. Who had a triangle just lying around?
Bart had one. I said, man, yeah, exactly. I said, I'm hearing like a Christmas bell, a chime, something soft, something sweet, and Bart's like a triangle, picks up this triangle. I'm like, yeah. And so I didn't know how to play one. I didn't know how to hold it. And so I said, man, I'm the only person here that's not playing anything. I said, let me have a crack at it. So I go into the recording booth, and I remember holding it up and just waiting for the time. And they're just like, we're going to tell you when to hit it. And I'm just like, it's a triangle. It's like, you just hit it, right? But I'm just really focused, like, where am I going to hit it? And so I hit the chime the first time. I thought we would have to take like multiple takes. I hit it, boom, let it ring out. How was that, guys? Daryl says, dude, you nailed it.
Oh, so you'll be listening for that. Be listening for that part. That's the that's like the Jimmy Page lead in freaking Stairway to Heaven. It's the moment of moments, my friend.
Right. And then I think Bart was like, dude, if we ever need a triangle player, you're my first call.
We need triangle on this song.
Yeah.
Just the guy.
Yeah.
The new Another Silent Night. Dave, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We have been talking with my good buddy, Dave Perez. I keep saying Perez. Every time I say it on the radio, I just say Dave Perez.
That's right.
And this is the first time I've ever seen. Is this the first single you ever done outside of the Tejas Brothers?
Yeah, that's right. And I was a little worried about that. How am I going to put this out there? I've been doing Tejas Brothers for so long, and um, I said I don't want to distance myself because the Tejas Brothers we're still 100% tight and still out there doing shows, and we're actually going to go back into the studio and finish up some songs. So what we're planning on doing is putting out Dave Perez single and then putting out a Tejas Brothers single and then going Dave Perez and staggering, because I have a lot of songs that I've been writing over the past 3 or 4 years that are not necessarily Tejas Brothers style songs.
Are you
So
going
we're
to
gonna
get Daryl Dodd to work on those singles? I mean,
there's yeah,
on the solo stuff.
the next one he wants. There's a song I wrote the day George Jones died. I wrote a song called "The Wine and Whiskey Toll," and it's a when I wrote it, I could hear George Jones in my head singing line by line. And it was great because I'd write a line, and if it didn't sound like something George Jones would have said or sang, I scratched it out and started over. So I said, no, it's got to be something classic, something, every line. And I fought for that, every line. I fought for every line on that. So I showed that to Daryl, and he was like, dude, he didn't even want to change a single thing. He's like, that is perfect. He said, I want to work on that one. And he told me that years ago. But he's now that we've got one under our belt, it's going to be so much easier for us to go back in there, and that's the next one he wants to do.
That's beautiful because I know Jason Isbell has a great quote that I absolutely love. It's the weird thing about being a songwriter is that the better you get at it, the harder it gets.
Oh yeah, man,
It's a great line because
that's
most things
perfect.
aren't like that. But the better you get at songwriting, you know you're getting better whenever it drives you insane.
Yeah,
Like every line, you're like, "That's not it. That's not right.
right.
That's just rhymed. I'm not gonna do that." You owe the song more, especially when you know you have something. That's
Oh
when it
yeah.
really becomes or at least I know for me, when I hear something, I'm like, "This thing is bigger than me." In my brain sometimes and it's bigger than my brain right now, so I'm going to make sure that I take time because this melody is perfect. I love the chord arrangements. Now I just got to give it just what it needs at the right time too, and not just throwing out lines just to be throwing out lines, but making sure that it hits with whoever's listening, that ear and that heart
Oh
get the
yeah,
same
man.
signal, you know what I mean?
But then also, and I don't know. I totally agree with that, with what he said. Jason Isbell said that, you said, right?
Yeah, Jason is line.
I totally agree with that. But to add to that too, I don't know if you are, but I don't know if your audience is, but I'm a huge believer in the man upstairs. Every now and then I'll write a song, just flows out. I wrote a song for my dad called Rich Man, and it's a tribute to my father. I wrote it in 10 minutes. I wrote it just as fast as I could. I was taking a shower, and it just hit me, this inspiration, because my dad was turning 75 years old, and I wanted to write a song for him, or wanted to do something special for him. And I started singing the song in the shower.
Wow.
So
Just hit you like that.
I got out. My hair is still. I still have a friend of mine has it. He won't give it back, but I still have the original uh, copy of me on a notebook paper, and you could see where the ink is kind of blotted out because my hair was still dripping wet when I was scribbling down these lines that were just flowing. So to add to what Jason Isbell said, definitely the more you write, the harder it gets. But sometimes God will bless you just like he blesses us with all kinds of different things in our lives. I think if you're a songwriter, God will bless you too if you keep an open mind and open heart. And there's been about 3 or 4 songs that I've written like that were the first song I ever wrote was "I Can't Sleep," and I wrote that in about 45 minutes. And I feel like I was just so excited and so happy about being in this band, the Tejas Brothers, forming my first band. I'd never been in a band before, never written a song before, and it just flowed. So I wrote my first 3 songs was "I Can't Sleep." My second song was "Boogie Woogie Mamacita," and my third song was "Love Me or Leave Me Alone." 3 of the most played songs from our first album, and I feel like God just sent me that stuff because all of them I wrote in less than an hour.
So whenever you were writing those, here's because I have a theory about that also, which is it because it's coming from the heart? Because I had a conversation with Max Stalling once,
I love
and he's
Max.
I love Max too. And he goes, You know, the worst thing to happen to a songwriter, James, you find love. Because
Oh
when
yeah,
your heart's broken, you just write so much easier. And I used to write like fast when my
yeah.
heart was breaking. The breakup songs were so much easier. But I always believed it was because, well, I'm not writing for you right now. I'm writing totally for me right now, and that kind of not selfishness, but I'm in tune with myself and my emotions. That it's a little easier for me to write down.
You know, when you're writing for yourself and your feelings that they're very personal, and you write those down, you might think that, I mean, it is for yourself, but then it inevitably, don't we all go through heartbreaks? Don't we all? So you're writing for the masses as well, because they can say that. I mean, how many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh, that's my song, that's my jam, or that's
Mhm.
my," because they can identify with it. So the heartbreak that you're feeling, that you're writing down, somebody else is feeling that, and they need to hear that, and that's going to become their song.
That's the connection.
That's
That's
it.
what we do it for, Dave. That's
Yeah,
what we
man.
do it for. Man,
Yeah.
I absolutely love talking to you
Oh,
today.
same here, man. Same
Man,
here.
it's so good. We got to talk again soon. I'll catch you on the other side of 2025. You let me know what's happening with the band then. We'll catch back up. But mi amigo, thank you so much for joining the James Cook podcast today, buddy. I appreciate it.
James, I love you, brother. You're my boy. I love you, man.
Love you too, brother.